we're still having a conversation concerning leadership and also celebrating our democracy. A good one, a second guest just joined us in person of Dr. Suleiman. He is the former chairman, editorial board, Daily Trust. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Always good to be here.
Thank you. Hajia, before we went on a short break, Shafi was asking, earlier. Yes, and you were making a point. Please kindly go ahead.
Yes. Actually, what I was saying, we were talking about 35% affirmative action. So what I was trying to say is that Nigeria, being a member of the United Nations, Nigeria signed to implement the 35 affirmative action. And if you remember, beginning of the year, we had a international women's conference in New York, where every country participated, the women in their country, leaders of the women participated. That is for us to now look at the 35 affirmative action as approved by the Beijing conference, where the United Nations now said it should be implemented. And a lot of countries approved and signed, and Nigeria was one of the countries that signed that it's going to be implemented. But as we are talking now, over 30 years ago, up till now, it has not been implemented in Nigeria.
Okay. I was actually asking a question in respect to from 1999 to 2007, precisely the Obasanjo administration, and then we're trying to narrow it down to other, subsequent administration. Whether, in terms of allowing women or giving women the opportunity to participate actively in the polity. So how would you compare? Which of the governments do you think has been having a fair deal for women?
Oh, honestly, I can safely say that the PDP administration has done their best. Because I remember when Obasanjo was our president, he also worked hard to ensure that the 35% affirmative action is implemented. Unfortunately, we did not get the support of our National Assembly then. But since he can appoint women, he appointed so many women as ministers in other positions of administration. Women were given chances, and they were given good positions. Look at Okonjo-Iweala. She was our Minister of Finance, and we had so many big women occupying good ministries. Why? Because Obasanjo believed that they also can contribute to the growth and development of their country. When it came to Jonathan, he had 15 women as ministers. But guess what? When Buhari administration came, it came down to 5 or 6. Is that it? I thought we should be going up, not going down. So honestly, the PDP government has done better for women, even though it's not the best. They don't do what we are expecting, but they did the best they can. So it is not about party politics. It's about our rights as Nigerians. So we are pleading that any government that is coming into authority in power in Nigeria, they must consider women as Nigerians, that they must be given their rights.
Okay, Doctor, as a beginning, as a beginner, let's start with this. Perhaps you want to key in to, how women fared under democracy. Perhaps let's just narrow it down to 26 years of, democracy from 1999 to date. But then specifically, we're looking at leadership, the quality of our leadership, especially in the democratic dispensations. So let me get your view in respect to the place of women, and then we narrow it down to the leadership question.
I think, first of all, I will agree with what Hajia has said. And as I mentioned earlier, I once interviewed Hajia right here in the studio on these issues. But while I agree, I think we should understand the reasons and maybe look for ways going out. Probably better than pleading that Hajia said, because people shouldn't be pleading what is their right.
They should demand for their right
in the first place. I think I agree also that PDP did better than this, because if you look at the numbers, either in executive positions or legislative positions across both the federal government as well as the states, there has been continuous decline, across the board. But part of the reason for this, I think, are two major ones. Number one, I think that maybe in general, at least from the northern part of the country, particularly. I think people don't welcome this idea that it's a Beijing conference, it's New York, it's the idea that it's not locally generated feeling and sentiment is there, that it is somebody who is throwing this at us. But it's not true, because I was reading a book earlier, and I read that at the formation of the NPC, Northern People's Congress, which later split into NEPUCO, that Saad Zunguru, Aminu Kano and co. spent 20 hours debating the position of women in society in the 1940s.
So you can see how important
in the 1940s. So these are not issues that are actually new. It's not from Beijing or from New York, but the impression created, people like Gambo Sawaba, even people like Haji Asaf, you had been doing this long before the Beijing conference itself. So I think if you can find ways to sell this idea to people, that this is not because somebody in the US or in China is asking for it, but it's because something that we have always had here and we can always improve upon. Something that is good, because women are a part of us. They are 50% of us. There is no man without a woman.
That is in that respect.
In many senses.
Even though some say even the population outgrows that of the men.
Exactly. So that's one. I think we have to find maybe different ways of approaching the issue. Because it's a problem that we must solve. And so on. That's one. Right. Second, I also feel that the institutions that matter the most in terms of advancing the cause of women, the cause of women, particularly in leadership positions, as you rightly point out, they are the ones that tend not to be influenced, or maybe we haven't had the right approaches to influencing them. I'm speaking about political parties, for example, because no matter what you want to do, is political parties that provide platforms for people to contest elections, for people to become
leadership aspiration,
member House of Reps, senator, and so on. So I know there have been several approaches to this, but maybe if we localize things and find ways of engaging them, and see that women are part of these processes, that we can also actually bring out the women as well. I wrote in my column a few weeks ago that what the coalition Erufai is trying to do is a good one. And whether they win in 2027 or not, what is important is to build a strong opposition, but also a different way of doing politics in Nigeria for the first time. Different way of organizing political parties. Political parties will go and say, oh, this brilliant lady, she's presenting a program, she's doing well, and so on, and then recruit her into their ranks, provide the platform for her, promote her, to stand for election, provide the capital, and experience, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, you have 10, 15 women into political positions. Maybe we can find ways of having these conversations with political parties so that they can begin to do things like this.
Even though some of them do have, incentives for women. I know some provide, give out tickets without necessarily
the competition,
asking for
primaries.
Some don't even ask for payment, for instance. There are slots that are reserved for,
But that's precisely the reason why it isn't much.
Right.
Because in politics, there is no free meal in politics. Politics is a transactional business. Anyhow, it's based on you give and then you take. I'm sure Ajay knows this more than me. If we are requesting free tickets, maybe out of 10, you can get 1. And even that one, they will be begrudging. Because if you actually hear what politicians say when you tell them to give free tickets to people, you get what I'm saying. They don't believe in it at all. Which is why I think the idea that INEC has brought, that, okay, we don't want to take away this one that the men control, but we can increase the number of seats so that in that, what is on top, we can give a few opportunities for women. I think that's also a very good idea.
Right, okay, coming back to leadership, the leadership question,
Yes.
There's no society that would prosper, develop without, credible leadership. leaders who are selfless. Going back, from the First Republic, we've seen some semblance of leaders that are patriotic, that are visionary, in their approach to leadership, that are also people-centered. Some of these values are gradually, disappearing. Just yesterday or so, I was at the Central Business District, and there is a function, I think involving the president of this country.
Yes.
And the way, the routes leading to that
Absolutely.
area were shut down
It
completely.
I was in my tema and I couldn't get to my house. I had to go.
Virtually everyone was, had to be stopped literally for that function to take place. I think that's not what was obtainable during the likes of Sardonas and co. They mingle with the people, they move and the people cheered and all of that. Why are we losing these values?
Thank you. Very important and intelligent question. And obviously, there's no one good answer. There could be several good answers to this. And mine is that it's also, in fact, I wish the entire program had been been focused on the followership rather than
the leadership.
The leadership, because I feel that we pay too much attention, excessively too much, and sometimes even damaging level of attention to leadership, to the detriment of the followership. The followership in a democracy, one way or another, produces the leadership. So it has an organic linkage to the leadership as well. Right. So I would say it's also the kind of followership that we have in Nigeria. Just when I was sitting at the waiting room there, I turned to Twitter and I saw somebody showing pictures of former governor of Yaya Bello of Kogi State with a retinue of convoy vehicles, like maybe 10 and he was saying, please look at how can a former governor be riding in this number of vehicles and so on and so forth. And at the same time, I didn't see Yaya Bello, but I saw, so I don't know whether it's actually Yaya Bello also. So as a journalist, I think I should clarify that.
That's right.
But I was also thinking that what about the people that were hailing him? People that are clapping. If you feel this is bad, and that he has maybe 12, 15 vehicles in his convoy as a former governor, right, and you are wondering where does he get the money to fund all of this, and so on. What about the people appreciating it right there? So if we don't take everything that is dished out to us by the leadership, there's a good chance that society can make progress. So I feel that particularly about democracy, the level of citizen engagement, citizen action that is needed, the vacuum is almost completely missing in this country. But we would complain that is the leaders. Of course, I'm not here to say that leaders are doing well or things like that, but we can't make society entirely dependent. Change can come from the top, right, but it can also come from below. So I feel that whatever you say about leadership, you cannot take away the role that, either willingly or unwillingly. And I think we need to focus attention more on what leaders can do.
Right.
Okay, Dr. Suleiman, each time we talk about leadership, we always, refer to our past leaders. They did excellently well. And it just beats my imagination that the present leaders that we have now are not following the footsteps of our past leaders. What would you say actually went wrong down the line?
Thank you very much. Your question is also very important, but Hajia would know that this is largely a question of impression. Okay. Because those people that you said did excellently well in the past, at their time, they weren't praised as doing well also. And in some cases, there were coups, some were even killed precisely because the people felt that they weren't doing well. So it is always after some lapse in time that people come to appreciate the efforts of those who came before. This does not necessarily mean that the people now are doing well or not, but to say that we have been misjudging the significance of leadership and performance in office for a long time, and that this misjudgment has been part of the problem as well. For example, that's how we landed with military governments for 29 out of our 60 years. You understand? So I feel like, yes, the current system, the current political people, they aren't doing anywhere near the people that came before. Yesterday I was driving out, and then I was with a friend, and I was telling him that all those people who led Nigeria in the past, may God forgive them whatever it is that they had done. Because I'm just wondering, all the roads and the bridges in Abuja city here, if it were the leaders of today who are left to do those roads, probably we will never have them. You know, so there's no doubt about it that those who came before did their best, you know, and so on. Yes. But then again, I also think that it is the current followership as well. We don't put pressure on our leaders. We are busy fighting each other. We are busy, you know, and things like that. Thank you.
Yeah, Ajay, a follow-up to that. For instance, Doctor has emphasized quite a number of times, you know, the role of the followership. But some will say, you know, with the level of weaponization of poverty, you know, among the citizenry, you know, the followership has no option, so to speak, than to sing the song of those in power. For instance, the people Doctor was talking about hailing the governor might be doing so because they expect, you know, before he passed,
to spray. It was actually
some money. So how do you place the decay in terms of our leadership perception, you know, or the direction of leadership now that is centered around, you know, the elites, the ruling elites, weaponizing poverty, you know, in order to continue to stifle continue to get hold on to the people. How would you, rate the level of damage that is being done to our democracy?
Honestly, this is a very, very serious issue in our country. And for me, I always believe that our present leaders have really failed this country. He says so. Our forefathers did so well. Whether we like it or not, they did so well for us. And when we are even talking about democracy in Nigeria, our forefathers fought the British government and ensured that Nigeria became independent. In the first place. Yes. And we had the democracy, and then the military came over. And now, as we are talking now, the leaders of this country, they don't care about Nigerians, about the poor Nigerians. Even our policies are not targeted at improving the standards of. When you're talking of good governance, good governance means development. Why are you talking about development? We are talking of opportunities for Nigerians. You are talking of good education. If we have had good education, do you think we'll have the kind of problem we're having when you have people just going there to yield to dance just because they will get a bag of rice or whatever? When we say, okay, we are supporting our people, and then you bring bags of maize, rice, and then you have Nigerians going there to queue just to collect a bag of rice. Is that what we want? We wanted Nigerians to go there and grow their own food, and so that Nigeria can export, so that Nigeria can make money, so that Nigerians can be financially independent. We don't have to depend on the elites. But we are not doing it. If we had improved education, when we started fighting about child's right education in Nigeria, I went around the country campaigning for the Child's Right Act. Why? Because we wanted them to be educated. That's about almost 20 years ago. Now we have them as bandits all over the country.
Out of school.
Is that what we want?
Absolutely.
So our policy is not targeted at developing Nigeria, creating employment opportunities for Nigeria, bringing good education for Nigeria, so that Nigeria can be at least what we say, we can now be very proud of our country. I was in the UK recently. Can you believe a taxi driver, an Oyibo man, was taking me to the airport? And he asked me, "Oh, are you?" When he said, where was he going to drop me? When I told him where he was going to drop me, he said, "Oh, are you going to Nigeria?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, Nigeria? Nigeria is gone." An Oyibo man. I said, "What do you mean Nigeria is gone?" He said, "You don't have Nigeria Airways. You don't have this, you don't have that." I used to work for Nigerians here in UK. But today, where are they? I was fighting with him. I said, "What is your problem? Nigeria is okay, But is it true? Is Nigeria okay?
Just trying to keep the image.
So the thing is that we have really failed our people. The elites in Nigeria have not done what they should do. During our time, I was in the university when the Federal Civil Service Commission was going around employing Nigerians. I was given my letter for employment. I was in the university. I'm not graduated. After my NYSC, today you finish your NYSC, tomorrow you are in your office. Today you can graduate and stay for 5-6 years without employment. Is that what we want? So as far as I'm concerned, the elites, the leaders of this country have failed Nigerians.
Okay, so Haja, I still want us to come back to women and leadership in Nigeria. You know, you made a valid point, you know, while you were giving, you know, a little history of how you were able to, you know, channel your own cause while you were still in office towards the Girl Child Rights Act and all of that. But we cannot deny that our society also have a problem when it comes to, you know, encouraging women to go into politics. You cannot deny the religious factor there, the cultural factor there. So, as a northerner and a former minister of women, how can, you know, the society change their minds concerning, you know, encouraging women to go into politics?
Yes, what you said is right. In fact, he even mentioned people like Gambo Sawaba in those days. And we know that people try to bring the issue of religion in politics, especially in northern Nigeria. And that is really the attitude of men that feel that they can bring this kind of thing to ensure that they don't give women their rights. When I talk of leadership, why is it that in Arab countries, there was a big Arab country that produced a female president in this world we know? And if you go to a country like Iran, you will see a lot of women in their assembly, a lot of women in their assembly. So is it only northern Nigeria that we have Muslims? So as far as I'm concerned, the Quran did not say that women should not be recognized. No. Everywhere in the Quran, when a man is mentioned, a woman is mentioned. That is what it is like. So we were not told that the women are nothing. No. But in Nigeria of today, especially northern Nigeria, when a woman wants to be something, they will say, oh, a woman is not supposed to be a leader. Do we have governors as leaders in the mosques? Do the governors lead prayers in the mosques?
They don't.
They don't. It's only the imam that can do it. So you have your job, I have my job. So they should not bring the issue of religion into it.
Yeah, Dr. Hajia raised a very fundamental issue around, you know, policies, right from the inception, are not done to target the ordinary people. And you know, it becomes a cycle. Now, beyond even the policies, some say budgeting itself is not done, you know, marginalizing the people. You know, she cited an example, you know, while she was in university, she's already had a job. You know, and some of our leaders today, who are perhaps proponents of, let's say, students' loan, we're being given stipends, you know, to encourage them to go to school. Now, why is it about this policy shift? Why is our policies changing towards, you know, marginalizing the ordinary people?
Thank you. Very important question. And I want to thank Ajay for raising that issue about policy, because policy is the most important thing about governance. We talk politics, we forget policy.
Right.
Why is it so? Because it is policy that determines government action, government spending, government power, government regulations. It's policy that affects all of us. So that's the most important. I think there are two reasons. The first will be commitment, you know, and the value system. If you look at the First Republic leaders, for example, all of them, you know, they had their problems. They had ethnicity and all that. But for each of them, within their own regions or at the federal level, they had that commitment towards Nigeria. You know, by and large, you can demand the policies that they came up with demonstrated this. The main reason, you know, why for someone like Sardauna, for example, had loved education, took education very seriously in northern Nigeria, was because he thought that's the only way to empower
the people.
The very people that he loved,
right.
the very people that he saw his leadership committed to, and so on. So, to be honest with you, that level of commitment now is lacking, second, I also think that even the capacity for meaningful policy is also lacking. You might say, I've had this idea that, there are plenty ideas in Nigeria that are, and so on. It's implementation that
matters. Yeah.
It is probably better to implement nothing than to implement the wrong thing, as far as development is concerned, because the consequences of one policy can take half a century or 25 years or longer to rectify. So it's probably better to have somebody who comes and just while away our time and leaves than to have somebody who comes with the wrong policies and then he is implementing them. I think that's important because let me cite the subsidy removal.
Yeah, I was actually commenting that.
Yes,
when you talk about
the subsidy removal.
It has a lasting effect.
Thank you.
Right.
I have written more than 15 times on this issue, and you look at it, you see that at the time, just around before the election, I was here, so we did the election together.
Right.
You remember that virtually all the presidential candidates, the PDP, the APC, the Labour Party, and also the NNPP, these were the leading presidential candidates. All of them had in their manifestos that they were going to remove the subsidy. Right. I read those manifestos. It's not like somebody told me. I read them. I wrote an analysis of that in the Daily Trust as well. Now, what happened is there wasn't anyone who actually demonstrated in their manifesto about even serious understanding of the consequences of withdrawing policy. Mostly their projections were based on what the World Bank and the IMF had been saying many years in Nigeria, because the World Bank and the IMF have been preaching subsidy removal in Nigeria since around 2012,
the SARS was
exactly. Part of it. They were just manufacturing consent, doing propaganda of all kinds. Again, but instead of our leaders, and they don't have to do it themselves, just have teams of people who are competent to do these things, to make this analysis, to be able to understand that if you withdraw this policy, X is likely to happen, Y is likely to happen, and so on. Now we have this subsidy removal. The government is clapping for itself, and the international, friends are also clapping. But the reality is that the average man is not smiling. The average people in Nigeria, and not even just the average people, frankly, So a lot of people that you not put in the category of average are really.
We can see, for example, the entire middle class have been wiped up.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's talking about the fact that virtually everyone is feeling the hit. Now, many believe that the middle class, which is supposed to be, between the rich and the
there's
poor,
no longer
has
middle class, has been wiped out.
It is either you are rich or you are poor.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, but then I come back again to followership, because one way or another, every society deserves the leaders that it gets.
That's right.
Even as you are speaking about this now, if you go to any community now, maybe you are able to single out 3 of the communities that are the poorest in this country. You might still find that when you go there to talk about the next election, you might still realize that the actual impact of the current government's policies are not in their thinking with respect to the next election. Are you getting the point I'm making? You might find that people are not necessarily bothered that this particular policy is bad for them. For example, somebody said in the US that their elections depends almost entirely on economic circumstances at the time of the election. If the president is doing well, if the economy is doing well, and your party or yourself, you are in power, you are guaranteed a victory. But if the country is not doing well, or there are dangers, chances are that you'll be removed. Right. So we don't have this level of consciousness where people will say, okay, regardless of what might be happening in Adama or in Akwa Ibom or in Ekiti, here where I am, things are very bad. and I'm going to stand against the government that has made things bad, but also to demand to see evidence of how the opposition will do better. Sometimes we just vote based on fairy tales and fantasies. What is the opposition saying? Do you understand the point? I write every week articles that are critical of this government. But at the same time, if someone asks you now, as a political reporter of many years, Shipu, what do you understand that the Labour Party or the PDP or the SDP, what do they offer differently from the APC? What would you say? I would like to hear it.
Even the platforms, they said it's one and the same. We had a guest earlier who said they are one and the same. They are of the same, creed. They have the same line of thinking.
Changing different elites and those ones today, but the same kinds of things. So that's why the followership, to bring about to give birth to a whole different kinds of leadership is now important. Because believe me, when I wrote about the SDP issue, that I said this is good. But if Arufai is thinking that he can remove Tinubu with the strategy that they used to remove Jonathan in 2015, he's joking.
The dynamics are
you have to have something different to offer Nigerians. Frankly, the article was largely supportive of the idea. But you can't say, okay, corruption, security, blah, blah, and then what should we Nigerians hope for when your new party wins the election? I think this is important.
Okay, I wanted to speak with Haja Ina. Would you really say that Nigeria is really practicing democracy?
Well, I think I also said it earlier on that as far as I'm concerned, Nigeria is not democratic. Nigeria is not democratic in the sense that, as I said, when our forefathers fought the British and regained independence, we are talking about democracy. Nigerians need to rule themselves by themselves. And then we had a democratic government, and the democratic government was overthrown by the military. And Nigerian politicians resisted, returned to democracy. They were overthrown again. And Nigerian politicians now insisted that Nigeria must be democratic. I remember during the Abacha administration, when politicians all over the country became united. They said, this time around, we don't want a regional political party. We don't want a political party that is based in the southwest, southeast, or northern Nigeria. We need a political party that belongs to Nigerians. And that was the beginning of having a national political party. All the political parties that was formed then, they were nationalistic political parties.
Absolutely.
And you cannot believe it. The military now realized that the politicians have come together. Nigeria must return to democracy. That was when General Salami Abubakar was created to ensure that they conducted a free and fair election so that Nigeria returned to democracy. And we returned to democracy in 1999. And up till now, we can even celebrate and say, oh, this is the time that Nigeria has stayed longer in a democratic system. But the thing is that democracy is supposed to be government of the people, for the people, by the people.
Absolutely.
Are we really practicing it? We are not. We are definitely not practicing democracy, because Nigerians should be free to elect whom they want to govern them. Nobody should go and influence them. They should not use money to buy votes. They should allow Nigerians to choose the best, because we want the best. But unfortunately, in Nigeria of today, that is not what is happening. And I don't think our forefathers planned for this.
Is it because Nigerians are not taking, to be a part of the conversation? Because going into 2027, the politicians are looking at endorsements, they are looking at, defections into their fold and all of that. The conversation is not about Nigerians, even though proponents of this opposition, talks, or the coalition talks, are also leveraging, the force, the strength of the ordinary people.
Yes.
Now, saying that, okay, 2027 is going to be between Nigerians and perhaps the ruling elites or the political elites. So how do you think we can, tinker with the current narrative, to ensure that the conversation generally is centered around the people. That means the people matter. Because as it is today, quite a number of people don't believe the votes would even count. I don't know how you would explain this, or rather, you're looking at this as a politician. You've been in the system for some time, for quite some time now.
Yes, honestly, our elites need to change their attitude, because now the local Nigerians, they have challenges, and these are the challenges that they take advantage of to get what they, because they're not winning the election, they are buying it. And why? Because we have created a situation whereby Nigerians are not even thinking of good governance. They are thinking of what I can get now. So our elites need to change their mind. They must study what is happening in other countries and ensure that we have good people that can deliver good governance to Nigerians. It's not about this is the person I want. No, it's about who can provide good governance for us. And as far as I'm concerned, in fact, I don't even care about a political party. We want the best people that will govern us. That is what we want. And honestly, this idea of having, of course, the system now, everybody is crying, whether we like it or not, whether we believe in it or not, it's not political. Every Nigerian is suffering.
Yes.
Is that what we want to continue? No. We want good governance for Nigerians, and any party can provide this good governance if we have good leaders that care about Nigeria.
Doctor, do you think Nigerians will leverage this? Because, you know, just like Hajia has said, poverty does not segregate. You know, the insecurity also cut across.
Absolutely.
These are unifying factors.
We all buy from the same police station.
Yes. Will Nigerians leverage this, you know, to say that, okay, 2027, we're not looking at any regional affiliation. We are not looking at religious affiliation. We are looking at, you know, salvaging our country first. How can that be happen?
Thank you, Shafi. That's a very important question from a journalist perspective. The question you asked earlier, that the place of the people.
Right.
For a journalist, that's your interest, you know. So I commend that. I think, to be honest with you, I don't have much hope. And I don't aim to be pessimistic, just a little bit realistic, you know, because first of all, and you know, the problems are on both sides. Let's take the top first.
Right.
The weakest link in Nigerian politics is not actually politicians that stand for elections. It is those who decide the delegate system. That's what Erufai said. He was absolutely correct.
That's right.
Is the delegate system.
Because that's what produced the candidates.
Yes, because that's in every political party. Before you and I know a candidate, the delegates in their party have already known them. So they are the ones who decide. Now, who are delegates in Nigerian political parties? We need to have information about their demography. They are usually unemployed, people who don't have any permanent job or never had for a long time, or underemployed, people whose jobs are not, you know, sufficient to provide a reasonable level of income or living standards.
In short, there are people in need, people who are in need.
Thank you. There are people who have lower level education mostly. You understand? There are people who have lower level moral commitment to anything. That's why they can enable a politician who today is in the APDB, tomorrow he moves in the APDB, to next, you know, and so on. And these are the people who will decide the very leaders that Ajay is talking about. If you have good leaders, more than 80% of the problem is solved, you know. But the 20%, the people will still have to, you know, that's conclude. How I understand the world, you know. So put in their own effort. Otherwise, every leadership, however good and however well-meaning, can easily go astray, you know, because of the sweetness of power. You understand, you know. So, but the moment this you look at these political parties now, either APC or PDP or any of them, these people will sell their votes to anybody.
In fact, they are a bidding.
Can I add something? Yes. Actually, these delegates that you are talking about, they, as you rightly said, they are also serious problems.
Yes.
Because they are, in fact, not even elected, but they were appointed.
Themselves, they are
governor
appointed.
from the
Thank you,
state
Hajiya.
will now decide who will be a delegate. And this person will now do what the governor says. You understand? If to say now they have a congress in a state, they are electing senators, they will wait until what Oga says, that this is the person that will be our senator.
Absolutely.
And the people will just have to go for that person. So that is our challenge. Even the delegates, they don't have their free mind to elect whom they think they should be elected. That's why even at the National Convention, as now it has started, they are trying to buy the chairman of the political parties in the states. Because the chairman of the political party in the states will now bring those delegates. And these delegates will now go there and sit and do what the unity list says. They will bring a unity list and say, this is the list that we want to be elected. It's not what the delegates want. Because already they have been bought over.
Is that the reason why people, I mean, the people in power now, concentrate on the governors, because they realize now they have more powers than even the electorate themselves?
Yes.
Because we've been seeing, let's say, for instance, the current president, trying to woo more governors. He believes that the governors will have more influence, perhaps, than the ordinary people. Is that the reason why? Because they control, those who would decide who becomes what?
Yes, actually, that has been the practice. But as at now, I doubt if that thing will succeed now. Because Nigerians, even though they have serious financial challenges, but they have now realized that the right thing must be done. Even the common man on the street knows that he has to do the right thing. So I don't think what we really used before to get the leaders will happen again. Because they are now thinking of, it's not about today or tomorrow, it's about my children. It's about the future of Nigeria. So I don't think this idea will now succeed. Because a lot of people are now saying, this time around, what we did last time, we'll not do it again. You understand? So we need to keep on campaigning and educating Nigerians on the need to look forward.
Absolutely.
That is how I see it.
So, Haji, I want us to look at unconstitutional rights, which of course protest is part of it. And that is, one strong tool that the people have, to air their grievances and to air, all of the challenges that they're facing. But the major problem that we have in the country is our leaders are, they have issues with the people protesting. Why do you think so?
The civic space now.
Yes, the civic space.
How can it be free? To allow people to ventilate?
Yes.
Yes, that is actually we have a constitution, as you rightly say, and the constitution is supposed to direct Nigerians, and we are supposed to also obey our constitutions. Therefore, if there is space for people to come in, people should be allowed to come in. But Nigerians should decide who should come in. And as we are saying now, that we want Nigerians to be educated on the need to get the right people. To occupy those spaces. Because if we don't do it, we'll continue to be where we are today. And I don't think that's what Nigerians are praying for.
Yes, Doctor, some of these fault lines, have the direct link to the structure and the system. The system, for instance. We're talking about getting the right people to aspire for leadership position. And we are talking about the first layer of leadership recruitment, that is the delegate system.
Yes.
But at the same time, we don't have options. One has to go through political parties. There is no way you can stand for election without going through a political party. And until the political parties decide, what do you think needs to be done? Going into 2027, we have still the window for constitutional amendments and so on. Even though there are also concerns around those who will spearhead these constitutional amendments. In most cases, they're also beneficiaries. So how do we get out of this?
Thank you. You're probably talking about independent candidates. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Okay.
It won't work.
Okay.
It's not an answer. It's fine if it is there because it opens up additional spaces.
Why do you think it's not going to work?
Because even in the most developed democracies, independent candidacy is a tiny percentage of the overall elected officials at all levels, and so on. So there's really no evidence on the ground to believe that independent candidacy will necessarily.
So do we have an option?
Work.
Is there any option?
The option, as I see it, is to influence the current political parties that exist.
How do we do that?
Or form new ones. Thank you very much. If you look at the APC, for example, They claim to have 40 million registered voters. I doubt if any party in Nigeria has up to 1 million registered voters, because INEC always say, okay, bring us the register. They have never produced it. If they have, it should be online. You know, the way all votes or all data about elections are online. You know? So, frankly speaking, all the political parties that we have in the current in the country, particularly the ruling party, they're actually small. The number of people who, because Ajay said something critically earlier that states chairman of the political parties, that's 36 people. Plus FCT, that's, you know, so it's easy to bribe or it's easy to influence 37 people because there are not many. If you increase the number by 10, that's 370. If you increase it by 1,000, that's 370,000. That's going to be difficult, you know, to influence everybody or to buy out and so on. So I think that's one. Second, one way is the constitutional measure that you mentioned, is that maybe we can have an amendment that removes this idea of consensus candidacy at the primary level. Let it be that anyone who feels that he wants to campaign for the for the primary system, for any position, let him join a party and let him stand for election in that party, and let the system allow for direct primaries of that person, so that you campaign to everybody in the party and the society at large. In fact, even those who are not members of a political party should be allowed to vote in primary elections. Because those who vote in the candidates who emerge in primary elections also turn out to be the ones who rule over us. So as a citizen of Nigeria, if I have a right to vote for a candidate at the secondary final election, I should also have the right to decide whether the candidate gets to that point in the first place.
But wouldn't that duplicate? Because if you open it up, to citizens, it also means it's going to be chaotic, for instance.
No, not at all.
Can you manage it?
Not at all. You are actually making political parties, you are taking political parties out of the hands of political bosses who decide in the manner in which Ajay described earlier, who gets what votes. For example, if you look at the viral video of Matawale, the current minister of that people are talking about, that he said God is the only one who can do insecurity and so on. That's not okay to say for a minister of and that's what a lot of people focused attention on. But that's not where my attention on.
Okay.
My attention in the entire video was when he was saying, I was the one who gave that person to become member House of Representatives. I was the one who decided that person to become a member House of Assembly. I was the one who did this. Elected positions are decided by one person. Because he's a governor. I thought this is worse than what people were focusing attention on, because he's saying that there's no democracy.
He's saying even beyond there.
He's saying that voters don't matter in the entire process.
But it's not what is obtainable.
Exactly. So if you say that, if you open up the process, then that is going to be impossible, something like that. Because of the population of Nigeria, every elected position will have thousands of Nigerians as constituency. Even ordinary councillor, you will have thousands of people. So if these thousands of people are able to shape the process where even primary candidates emerge in the first place, you are not able to buy off all of them, no matter how much money you have. And some will,
I wanted to add to what he said. Actually, we had it before in Nigeria.
Fantastic.
I remember during the NRC and the SDP days, election of the presidential candidates, the primary elections was done all over the country.
So you start campaigning right
from...
You're talking about the option A?
Yes. It's not about delegates, no. It's all Nigerians that voted. In fact, I remember during the NRC and the SDP days, we had two candidates that were emerging, and then that one was annulled. And then we had the MQ Abiola issue, and it was done also all over the country. When the general election, as results were coming in, I know because my husband contested in one of the elections. And then in SDP, Sheikh Iradua has emerged. And the primary election was there all over the country. I remember for the NRC, I had to go home to go and campaign in my local government for the primary election or not the general election. So if we can go back to that. That's what he's saying. It's not just electing few people to bring who will rule us, but let Nigerians come up with whom they want.
Is it a matter of constitution now?
Exactly.
Or, because if it is a constitutional matter,
the constitution already allows it. It's just that the current system favors the politicians, and so they adopt it. Otherwise, the constitution already allows it. For example, even in the APC, that's what they started with, actually. In 2015, when they are looking for people. You understand? In Adamawa State, I remember, for example, where Buba Marwa, the current DG, he stood for election, and he had about 53,000, or is it 153,000 primary election votes. And he lost. He didn't win. It is somebody else who still won. I thought that's good. Because it means that if he had 153,000 votes or 53,000 votes and still lost, it means that the person who won had even more. It's as simple as that. So and that way, the chairman of the state party, whatever, cannot decide the outcome beforehand. So I think that will help.
So I just still talking about, celebrating our Nigerian democracy, quality of our leadership. How can Nigerians hold their leaders accountable?
Nigerians, of course, they are our leaders, and if they succeed, we praise them. If they fail, then we have to tell them the truth. So Nigerians will have to face the truth and let us not say, oh, we are shy, we will not say this, we will not say. No, it is, as I say, it's about our future. So we must hold our leaders responsible for what is going on as at now. And as I said, democracy, when we are talking about democracy, all the political parties are not democratic. The government is not democratic. Therefore, if we want democracy to survive in Nigeria, we must tell the government the truth. And the government must stand up to do the right thing. That is giving the people the right to choose who will govern them. Because that's all about democracy. So that is my own take on that.
Okay. How do we get...
you, Dr. Ciroma?
Yeah, thank you. I think, but just to reinforce what Aji has said, we have many actors within the democratic system. Politicians and political parties, they are just two actors. There are many others. There is the media, the civil society, the ordinary citizen. For example, you mentioned earlier the defections from the various opposition parties to
internal party democracy.
There's no doubt about it. That's the strategy of this government. It can be a potent strategy, but it can also flop. But I think the media can help in this regard. For example, it's been nearly 2 months since the Delta State governor and all the people there moved to the APC. If we have media organizations that can go to Delta State and conduct opinion polls, actually, with people, since if the election it's been 2 months since your governor.
Okay. So Dr. Suleiman, I think yes, we have to move now. So up next we'll link up with the National Assembly to.
And thereafter we'll also look at some of the takeaways with our guests here in the studio.